Hello YouTube. Alright, I haven't posted a deck in a while, but I wanted to post this one because this one I have a ton of fun with, and I've been building it for a while. It is Purphoros, God of the Forge. Now, I also wanted to make sort of a tribal deck, so with red, that tribe will be Goblins. There's tons of ways in this deck to kill people. 1, you attack them. 2, you put a ton of things into play, a ton of Goblins, and Purphoros kills them. 3, you can tap all your Goblins, do tons of damage through various sacrificing them, putting them into play, lots of enchantments, lots of weird direct damage spells. Yeah, anyways, this deck's a ton of fun because it just keeps damaging everybody in the face over and over again. And yeah, if you're that kind of player, you enjoy that kind of game, well, let's look at it. Great thing about playing monocolor decks is that you don't need a ton of expensive lands, and this one's not any different. This one has 24 basic mountains, so there you go, that's pretty cheap. Next up, red is lacking in card draw, so sometimes you put these cycling lands in there, it'll get you to the card that you need if you're late in the game and you don't need to put a land out. Now, going with Purphoros' theme, this is pretty sweet. Anytime you put a creature into play with Purphoros, he does 2 damage to each opponent. So, these lands put creatures into play. And over time, that 2 damage plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 will add up a lot. Here's a couple lands that count as 2 mana basically. Here's your one and only land that can help take care of somebody else's Cabal coffers or Urborg or whatever problem land is giving you issues. Here's a random land that I like a lot, Winding Canyons. Anytime you have a creature deck basically, you can use this to put your, important creature out the minute before you take your own turn. So like on the end of somebody else's turn, put them into play. Surprise. Hey. Contested Warzone, this is a Goblin deck, so of course you give all your creatures +1/+0, and you can keep attacking that way if that's your game plan, is attacking with like 10 or 15 Goblins every turn. Homeward Path, if you have some guys that are really important, you want to get them back, then you gain control of all creatures that you own. Spine Rock Knoll, you do a lot of damage in this deck, so might as well put this in there to cast something for free. And finally, the reason that you use tons of mountains, one of my favorite cards of Magic, history in general, Valakut, Molten Pinnacle. Anytime you have a mountain beyond 5, so there should be 5 on the table already, anytime the 6th or the 24th mountain comes into play, it does 3 damage to target player or creature. It can get out of hand. Incremental damage is the name of the game, so you want to keep killing people while they keep doing little pieces of damage to them every turn, and eventually they will be dead. How do we ramp in this deck? Well, Skirk Prospector. I'd love to have it in turn 1 because you can sack Goblins to add red mana to your mana pool. This deck makes a lot of Goblins. Brightstone, again, if you have a lot of Goblins, well, then you add red for every one you own. Expedition Map, well, that doesn't really ramp you so much as gets you to Valakut. Ruby Medallion makes everything 1 cheaper. Mind Stone draws you a card and makes a mana. Cage Sun, pretty sweet. Gives all your creatures +1/+1 and also makes all your mana create double. Mana Vault. I don't use Soul Rings. If you want to use a Soul Ring, go for it. I took them out as an experiment. Koth the Hammer ramps you with both of his first 2 abilities, which you can see there on the screen. But also with his -5, he kind of goes with the Valakut thing. Now all of your mountains are deadly weapons. Now let's draw some cards. Red has problems with drawing cards. Skull Clamp's one of the best things for any token creating creature deck to have. It's a very busted card. Carnage Altar, just draw 1 card, sack a creature. Wheel of Fortune and its cousin, Reforge the Soul. The miracle cost makes this slightly cheaper, but this always costs you 3, and everybody discards their cards and draws 7 new ones. It's also a great way to disrupt somebody. Speaking of disruption, Memory Jar, yay, woo! You can put this out, and then on your turn, while everybody else is tapped out, that's the ideal time to use it. everybody draws new cards, and then you're the only one who has mana to use them. Staff of Nin, draw your card extra turn, or every turn, and then also deal damage to the thing. It's handy and incremental. Goblin Welder, this is kind of a disruptive thing. It can get your memory jar back, sure, or it can put their big fatty artifact creature into the graveyard and replace it with a armillary sphere or whatever silly artifact they have in the graveyard. Just tap to do it. He just switches them. And he's a goblin, so that fits. Impact Resonance. It's a handy card. If you don't know what it does, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest amount of damage dealt by a source to a permanent or a player this turn. That could be Planeswalker, could be another creature. The thing is, if they attack with a giant fatty, like a 15/15 creature, and they're not even attacking you, it doesn't matter, and you want to wipe the board, well, you can then cast Impact Resonance to do 15 damage among three or four other creatures as you choose. And yeah, it's just a fun instant to play. It really swings the tables around if used at the right time. Chaos Warp is the only way for red to remove permanents, so you should have one. However, this is mostly a budget deck, except for this card. I happen to have one. If you don't have it, that's okay. But Blood Moon will mess up all those fancy land bases for sure. And it does not mess up this one because you have 24 mountains. A cheaper way to mess up expensive mana bases is Ruination. Shatterstorm, destroy a bunch of artifacts. We don't really have a lot in this deck, so it doesn't matter for us. Now here's some tutor effects. First one, it's not the best. What it does is you get a bunch of goblins and you put them on top of your deck. Late in the game, that's pretty good because you have a lot of mana. Early in the game, be careful. You may put 4 or 5 goblins on top of your deck and not draw any lands after that. Better way to do it, I think, is Goblin Matron. She costs 1 extra, but she allows you to put a goblin in your hand. And the ultimate best way to do it is Mogcatcher. Mogcatcher, pay 3, tap, search your library, put any goblin you want into play. Then shuffle your library, and you can do it over and over. Here's some kind of anthem effects for goblins, because you'll have a lot of them. Bushwhacker, give everything +1/+0. Give all your red creatures first strike. Battle Cry, every time this thing attacks, well, then everything else gets +1/+0 too. Goblin King, gives everything +1/+1 in Mountain Walk. Goblin Chieftain, +1/+1 in Haste. All goblins get haste, or all other goblins. Taurian Mauler, this is pretty sweet if you play it early, while everybody's just casting their beginning the game spells, soul rings, whatever. Well, he gets +1/+1 counter every time, and he counts as a goblin. Here's a good way to put a bunch of goblins on the table. That's what we're getting into now. How do you do that? How do you put all your goblins out? How do you use Purphoros' effect? Well, this one. Morph for 3, put it face down, and then at any time, you can pay 1 red and 2 X to, let's say you pay 11. 1 red and 10 colorless. Bam, you flip him, 5 goblins come onto the table. Purphoros does 10 points of damage to every opponent. Profit, yay. Goblin Rabblemaster, he's pretty awesome. Puts goblins out every turn, they attack. Every time he puts one out, 2 damage from Purphoros. Purphoros is really hard to get removed. That's the reason that he leads this deck. He's indestructible. So unless they're exiling something, it's really hard to get rid of him. And yeah, he's always there when you need him to be. When your Siege Gang commander, for instance, comes out and puts 3 goblins onto the battlefield. Also, Siege Gang has got this extra ability of sacking goblins to deal 2 damage to a creature or player. Lots of synergy. Krenko Mob Boss, he can copy Siege Gang. Yay. He can copy... I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Kiki Jiki. Krenko actually just doubles all your goblins on the field. Beetleback Chief puts 2 goblins onto the field. Ib Halfheart has 2 kind of cool abilities. He's kind of your glass cannon. I'm going to win the game with 1 fell swoop kind of character, I guess. First, if you're attacking with all your goblins, then instead of them dealing damage, if they're blocked, you sacrifice the goblin and it will deal 4 damage to the creature that tried to block it, instead of 1 maybe. But his killing ability is this one. you sack 2 mountains, you put 2 goblins into play. If Purphoros is out, let's say you sack 24 mountains. All the mountains you own. Well, you put 24 goblins into play, and Purphoros does 48 points of damage to everybody, and you win the game. Kiki-Jiki, he will copy any non-legendary creature, and so you can copy lots of different cool goblins with cool effects, and then just get those effects twice. Goblin Warrens, sack 2 goblins, put 3 goblins into play. That's a bonus. Empty the Warrens. It has Storm, so if you cast any spells before this, it copies the spell. Every time it's copied, you put 2 goblins into play. Here's an X spell. Not as nifty as a Storm spell, but it will put X 1/1s onto the battlefield. All of them doing lots and lots of damage, yay. And speaking of, Mini Purphoros came out of the new set. Anyways, when a goblin enters the battlefield under your control, or any creature enters the battlefield, well, then it deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you get both of those things out, well, then you start doing 3 damage to everything all at once, and it's pretty great. Here's some goblin effects for when you're sacking them. You can sack one with this one to deal damage to a target creature or player. When it hits the graveyard, because tokens hit the graveyard, you can have it deal 1 more damage to a target player. Goblin Sharpshooter, every time a creature dies, whatever, it can keep tapping to do 1 damage over and over. Zozu the Punisher is awesome for any deck that tries to spit out a bunch of lands over and over again. He'll really put a stop to any of those people who are trying to ramp way beyond you, because it'll do 2 damage every time they put a land into play. And Jim Palm. He's a great way to kill 1 big fatty creature. You can cycle him, and when you do cycle him, he'll do X damage to a creature, where X is equal to the number of goblins you control. Skirt Fire Marshal is a way to kill people off as well. He has protection from red, and he allows you to tap 5 goblins and do 10 damage to a creature, to each creature and each player. So he kind of wipes the board. He has protection from red though, so he stays out there. Mana Sink, Spike Shot Elder, he's okay. You do damage equal to his power. Raise Runners, you can take it or leave it. Sometimes at the end of the game it can help though, because you can just sack a few mountains or a few lands that you don't want, and he'll get +1/+1 counters and deal damage equal to those counters at the end of your turn to somebody. Voracious Dragon, he'll deal double damage equal to the amount of goblins he devoured when he comes in. So he gets big and he deals a lot of damage in a 1-shot to a target player or creature. If you're attacking, well, Relentless Assault and Anger are awesome. Give everything haste, make everything attack twice. This one's kind of a weird one. If you don't play with a lot of Kamigawa stuff, well, it has Bushido X, where X is equal to the number of attacking creatures. So if it attacks and it attacks with 15 goblins, well then it has Bushido X, or Bushido 15. That means if it is blocked, it becomes a 18-17 creature. Vice versa, if it blocks something and somebody else is attacking with 15 creatures, well then it also becomes an 18-17 creature on blocking. And it makes, the real bonus I guess, is that she makes all of your opponent's creatures attack each turn. So if you're trying to clear a path, you put her out. If you're not trying to clear a path, leave her in your hand until you are able to really just swing in for a kill. Here's another way. You don't even have to swing in with Purphoros. Sack all 50 of your goblins or whatever, and then put 50 4/4s on the battlefield. Do 100 damage to everybody. Yay! Hellkite Charger. Attack twice, and it flies. It's like one of the few flying creatures in your whole deck. I guess that's a weakness, but anyway. Mere Battlesphere puts a lot of creatures out. Chancellor Forge puts goblins out if it's in your opening hand and or when it comes into play. Here's some direct damage stuff. Goblin Grenade. Woo! Shrine of Burning Rage. Cast it early, it's awesome. Leyline of Punishment prevents them from gaining any life. Absolutely necessary in this deck, because only so many times you can hit them. Red Sun Zenith. I use this instead of like Fireball or something because it goes back into your deck and you might draw it once or twice or 3 times in a game. Comet Storm. This, you can use it to hit them in the face, or you can use it to kill creatures. Whatever you need to do, it's kind of versatile. That's why it's here. And last but not least, my favorite card to kill somebody with, Burn at the Stake. You tap a certain number of creatures and then multiply that times 3 and then do that much damage. So tap 15 goblins, do 45 points of damage, bam, in the game, hopefully. Well, hope you enjoyed this deck. I surely do when I play it. It speeds things up. And if you like speedy games, well, then give it a shot. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments below.